Let's now turn to super, and you can use it to manage your debt better. Rob Gilmour joining us from Wealth Simplicity. Rob, good to see you.
Hi Andrew, how are you?
Very well, thanks. All right, super, and I guess what it can unlock just in terms of what? Tax and debt repayment. How does that work?
Yeah, well look, there are a lot of people in Australia now that are moving into that retirement phase and carrying debt on their home, and one of the key objectives is to go into that phase without debt and owning your home. And it's important to consider some strategies around potentially unlocking superannuation and taking advantage of the pension rules once you get to age 60, and there's plenty of opportunities there.
All right, can you talk us through some of those strategies then?
Well, look, for example, if you've got debt on your home and you're focused on paying that off, well, there can be a decision to potentially direct more money into super and claim some tax deductions on those contributions and hold off on repaying that debt until you get to age 60, and potentially starting a transition to retirement pension and then allowing that to accelerate the repayment of debt.
Can you also use it in terms of bridging finance perhaps?
Yeah, and look, the rules around here, there is some complexity, and it's really important to probably get a good handle of the pension rules and conditions of release. And we have had examples in the past where clients have potentially looking a couple of steps ahead and trying to get that next family home. And obviously if it's talking about a family home, there is a significant capital outlay. And if you do satisfy a condition of release and can start a account-based pension, you can draw some significant lump sums out of super to potentially get you to that stage and not take on as much debt, and then potentially looking at selling the existing family home and recontributing back into super later on.
Yeah, what if you're in that fortunate position, I guess, maybe looking to downsize, you sell the family home, you free yourself from that debt. What's the best strategy in terms of what to do with your super then?
Yeah, well look, taking money out and putting money back into super, plenty of considerations around there. There's obviously downsizer, but that's probably something you may want to think about later on. Withdrawing money from super and putting it back in to even up superannuation balances. The rules now with the increased non-concessional contributions do allow couples to potentially put up to $960,000 into super. Now that's staging it over a couple of years, but there's a real opportunity there to boost retirement savings after the sale of a significant asset like a home.
What about those age thresholds then? So you talk about 60. What though, when you reach that point of actual full retirement, how does that change the picture?
Yeah, so look, the rules between 60 and 65, there's a little bit of a grey area around there. So the key thing is satisfying a condition of release, and setting up one of those gold standard account-based pensions require that between the age of 60 and 65. It can happen automatically at 65, and not a lot of people are also aware that can happen, and they do linger in a less optimal scenario. But a condition of release generally means leaving or ceasing an employment arrangement. It is something I would encourage people to get advice around to see if they can meet that condition and then have that additional optionality around accessing super.
So you say this all comes down to making your work and your capital work the hardest it can, and taking advantage of those provisions and concessions for super.
Well, look, absolutely. So if you've got the ability to access super and potentially be carrying less debt outside super for a period of time, then you need to think about the returns. So at the moment with interest rates where they are, that cost of debt's probably going to be about 6.5%. Then you've got to look at, well, that's a guaranteed return. So potentially taking some money out of super, reducing debt for a period of time, and then putting it back in later can be a smart decision. It can also just be a little bit more of a sleep at night test that you're not carrying that much debt for a period of time. So there is some flexibility around to manage that, particularly if you've, say, got an SMSF and there's some idle cash that might be sitting there, earning bank interest. Maybe it's better off used to reduce some debt for a period of time outside of super.
Outside of those who have an SMSF, is it ever too late to sort of shop around in terms of super fund?
It's always a very important consideration leading up to retirement. Shopping around for super funds and getting yourself set up in the right asset allocation is really important. There are some things that you can control, and that's around the fees that you're paying. Obviously having a look at the investment performance that you might be getting, looking at the industry funds and how they compare. We use a lot of those. And depending on what type of investor you are, sometimes just having that passive approach of an industry fund can really tick the boxes in terms of a retirement savings strategy.